of the evening here, Chaver Knesset, Rabbi Dov Lipman, who is the first American in many years, or American-born in many years, to hold a Knesset seat. And I would say, respectfully, just no disrespect meant, it was somewhat of a surprise that his party, Yesh Atid, headed by Yair Lapid, was as successful as it was in these past elections. Rabbi Lipman, or Chaver Knesset Lipman, welcome to Spin Class.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be on with you.
So how should we address you? Rabbi, Chaver Knesset, Dov, what's the best?
I like Dov, but
okay,
people tell me that we're supposed to give honor to the office, and I certainly respect that as well, but whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, so let's give honor to the office. Chaver Knesset Lipman, you are on your American rock star tour, if you will, at this point, right? You're here. You're going to have a whirlwind weekend of speaking engagements and meetings with all kinds of different people in the New York Jewish community.
It's been really fantastic so far. I landed yesterday morning, and I've been scheduled literally from morning to night, and it's an honor to be here, not asking for anybody's vote, not asking for anybody's money for anything, but just to really share good news about Israel and really reconnect people to Israel, especially in this week leading up to Yom HaShmos.
Interesting, as far as the timing in particular, I guess between Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron / Yom HaAtzmaut, and this, I guess, would be your first one as an official member of Knesset. When you made Aliyah back in 2004, did you ever expect to be in politics?
No, I really had no aspirations to get involved in politics. I definitely have a background where I certainly saw my family, my mother, my father, activists and people who are active in the community, and that was certainly naturally the direction that I was going to go in general, but never really, I really was a person of education. I was looking forward to a career in Israel, teaching in post-high school yeshivot and seminaries for North American students. And I certainly would have found significant satisfaction in that path and was not headed towards politics.
And if you had planned out a career in politics, it probably would not have been with the party that you're affiliated with.
Well, first of all, the party didn't exist when we first made Aliyah,
okay, fair enough.
But even after I made the decision to enter the political realm, and I realized that's where real change takes place, and I felt that real change was needed, I have to be honest and say that Yair was not on my radar screen as someone who I thought I could work together with. Unfortunately, we live in a world with the rumor mill, and people like to tell stories about people, and to be frank, all I heard was negative about him, and I would not have thought that he was a person that I could work together with. I thank God that I had the wisdom to look into it a little bit more and investigate and get to know him, and I found a person who I not only can relate to, but has a very similar vision for the future of Israel.
So let's unpack the narrative a little bit of your career arc, I guess, as it relates to the last year and a half, 2 years. You got involved in some of the strife, I guess, the intra-Orthodox strife in Beit Shemesh. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Unfortunately, there are groups, as there are in, I guess, every culture, but there are extremists, religious extremists that live in Beit Shemesh, and they flex their muscles in terms of trying to control of certain areas of the city, including right around the corner from my home. And when the well-known incident took place, or a few months' worth of verbal assaults and at times physical assaults on little girls, I was there every day to try to protect the girls on the one hand, make sure that they got home safely, and then take to the next level in terms of trying to get the police, the governmental authorities involved to stop this from happening, and they didn't. And I'm not here today to bash or berate any particular people or authorities, but it made me realize that something was really rotten, and I felt the need to get involved and to try to be part of the process of combating that extremism, and to enable the world and Israel and the world to see the beauty of Haredi and ultra-Orthodox Judaism, and not to be exposed to the ugly side of these extremists.
So where did you take it from there? Was it, why not run for mayor of Beit Shemesh? Why run for Knesset?
Well, I actually did not make an initial decision to run for Knesset. My initial step in terms of contacting Yair was really thinking about Beit Shemesh, actually, and hoping to find a national party that could help Beit Shemesh. Over the last few years, as we've been experiencing the various issues of Beit Shemesh, I felt that none of the existing parties really rose to the occasion and helped us despite our turning to them. So I was looking for a party to really help Beit Shemesh. It evolved over time into running for Knesset, but even when I was helping Yesh Atid at a national level, the possibilities for running for a position, it didn't necessarily be mayor, in Beit Shemesh was still on the table. So it wasn't a decision to jump specifically to a national office.
Well, I guess a little bit different in Israel, given the size of the country, and running for Knesset, in a certain sense, is almost like running for a state legislature here in America. But so I understand. Weren't you originally going to run together in the Am Shalem list? At what point did you?
Yeah, I initially reached out to a former member of Knesset, Rabbi Salam. This is a while ago, in 2010 already, to help him out. And again, with no intention of running for Knesset. He did at a certain point offer me a position very high on his list, certainly far higher than I was offered in Yesh Atid. The issue there, and it's not something I want to really focus on, I was really looking to be part of a party which really represented total unity, breaking down all the barriers and having religious and secular and men and women and Sephardic and Ashkenazic and Ethiopians and Russians and all of us working together. And I didn't really find that in Am Shalem, even though I very much value Rabbi Salam and his vision. And I did find that in Yesh Atid, and I'm happy to say that while on the one hand I'm sad that Rabbi Salam did not make it into the Knesset, both myself and actually another person who was very involved in Am Shalem and also offered a spot on the list is now chief of staff in the religion ministry, and the two of us together will certainly be making sure to implement many of the changes that Rabbi Salam is seeking to make.
Just to go back to Beit Shemesh for a second, where do things stand, I guess, with regard to, it's out of the headlines, and we've probably seen there is still stratification there, obviously, between different neighborhoods, and if I think it behooves us to say that some of the most extreme elements of Yerushalmi society, Ada Haredius followers, have their satellite community in Beit Shemesh, so it's a little bit of an interesting mixture that's atypical of any place else in Israel, but there are municipal elections coming up there. What will happen as far as, will there be changes? Will people see your election potentially as maybe a wake-up call?
Well, on the one hand, there's no doubt that let me just say this first. Actually, Beit Shemesh is a wonderful place to live, and our family is thriving there, and schools are there, and the location is wonderful, and it's such a beautiful place to live in terms of the areas that surround it, and it's very important to emphasize. And the communities are absolutely fantastic, and many people have found wonderful homes there. It has quieted down in general in terms of the extremism. There are always pockets of trouble here and there, but certainly not something which is overwhelmingly an issue. We are very much gearing up for the elections in October. There's a process that's underway to find a single candidate from the general population. And when I say general population, I mean from moderate Haredi through secular to work together and really create a unified camp. That process is underway and will be successful. I'm involved behind the scenes in that process, and I'm very confident that we'll be able to take the city back. And when I say take the city back, I want to just emphasize, I don't mean out of the control of a Haredi mayor. You can have a Haredi mayor who is wonderful and successful and provides services for the entire city and all the populations. It's not an issue of Haredi leadership or not. It's a question of leadership that gives in to the extremist element or not, and also manages the city properly. So we're looking forward to that, and I really believe that a new leader will be able to take the city in a much better direction.
Is that a different list? What is the Tov party that you had been involved in? Is that party?
Yeah, I was never involved in any kind of official way in the Tov party. Okay. I very much commend the very brave members of the Tov party who are Haredi.
Well, tell us about the Tov party for the listeners. What is the Tov party and what does it represent?
Sure. Essentially, the Israeli Haredi population has had two parties that have been involved: the Shas party, which is more the Sephardic side, and the United Torah Judaism, which is a combination of Degel HaTorah, which is a Lithuanian wing of Ashkenazi Haredim, and Aguda, which is the more Hasidic wing, and they work together in a joint party called UTJ. Tov was started by people who felt that these parties, and I agree wholeheartedly, that UTJ and Shas do not represent the best interests of the average Haredi who understands that you can be fervently Orthodox and fervently committed religiously and believe in the primacy of Torah and Torah study, but also be educated, support your family with dignity, and be part of Israeli society while obviously observing halakha in every sense of the word. And the Haredi parties were not representing that. They were representing a notion which says that the only way to truly succeed as a Haredi Jew is to study Torah day and night for your entire life, and that wasn't representing this group. So they rose up and through great courage and under very dire circumstances, difficult circumstances, started this party called Tov. They have 2 seats at the municipal level in Beitar and 1 seat on the municipal level in Beit Shemesh. I have heard, I don't have this verification for sure, that they have 40,000 members, and if that's true, it's remarkable, and I think it's a very important step for the Haredi community.
There have been attempts in the past. I think at one point there was an attempt in Harnof amongst Anglo-Haredim and different parts of the Haredi public to organize this non-traditional Israeli party, and they've never been successful. So I guess the question is this going to be a sustaining model? Are there actually going to be enough of a critical mass that are going to be attracted to this vision?
Well, I think that the answer is yes. I do believe that once people recognize that you can raise your children as fervently Orthodox and Haredi Dvar Hashem, and still have them have basic general studies and be trained properly to sustain their families with dignity and actually fulfill what they promised in the Ksuva at their wedding, which is to sustain their families. Once they realize that it's not a contradiction, I do believe you'll see people flocking towards this idea. We have to remember that Israeli Haredim in particular grew up in a world where that wasn't an option. They didn't see a model for that balance. I think that the American Haredim, and I certainly see myself in this camp, growing up and seeing that every single yeshiva, no matter how religious and how yeshivish and the like, has general studies at the high school level, and you study basic math and science and English, and then you have the opportunity to go learn at Chaim Berlin and go to Brooklyn College at nighttime, or do what I did in Der Yisrael and have an official program and balance the two together. So we know that it's possible. We know that you can create great Talmidei Chachamim and people who are completely committed to halacha, but who also are receiving this education outside of the Torah curriculum. And once you realize that it's possible, I think people will flock to it and embrace it.
Well, we also have 2 models here amongst the Haredi population here in the U.S. There is that model that you cited of college and yeshiva, or yeshiva, I should say, and college as afterthought or secondary. But there's also the Lakewood model that says that no college, and there are a lot of people on that track. It's not exclusively one or the other. You also have, amongst Hasidisha, most of those here in New York, even, and elsewhere, that are giving very little in the way of secular studies after a certain age. So it's not one versus the other, I think, but I agree with you. The model is certainly able to be successful here to a large degree. What happens when the leadership of Gibel or Yadut Torah and Shas sees these initiatives, I guess at this point to call it, as a real threat? And there's a history, at least in Israel and elsewhere, of people in the Haredi community, or even anywhere in the Orthodox community, kind of melting away when there's backlash.
Well, my analysis from what I've seen on the ground in Israel is that the changes that are coming anyway on a government level will certainly play a major role here. The Haredi political parties, which again I do not feel represent the best interests of the Haredi community and to enable Torah to flourish even more and be strengthened, I don't think that they have the ability at this point to stop that legislation from being carried out. And once there is the breaking down of the doors, so to speak, and the ideas of general studies and the idea of service are in place, and the next few years when yeshiva boys or avrechim or guys in kollel will be allowed to just go to work without doing service, while all this happens, they can scream as much as they want against it, but the reality is going to find itself on the ground with guys taking advantage of the opportunity to go to work and not see themselves as destined to be impoverished for the rest of their lives. And I think as they begin to see that you can balance together Torah with this approach of being part of the broader society, all the screaming and acting out that the Haredi members of Knesset do, certainly the Knesset and through the press and the propaganda which they spread about what our intentions are in passing this legislation, I think it all falls to the side because people are wise enough to see right through it.
I think to a certain extent there has, when we talk about this propaganda and some of the screaming, you've been made into a little bit of a public enemy. To a certain degree. You also, Naftali Bennett, certainly has been made into an enemy of the Haredi community. How as a frum Jew, how does that take you? How do you react to that?
Well, on one hand, I'm very comfortable in my own skin. I know that no one can find any example, not one example, of any time where I've said anything against Haredim. I think the same can be said for Naftali. The same, by the way, can be said for Yair Lapid. So you can raise the propaganda and attack, but at the end of the day, I'm very comfortable in my own skin and with myself because I know that the things that are being said are not accurate and just can't be shown anywhere. That's number one. Number two, there's tremendous satisfaction in the number of Haredim who have turned to me for assistance from the moment that I took office. On a daily basis, a primary focus of mine is the project of helping Haredim get to the workforce. I started a Knesset task force to help Haredim get to the workforce. I know that my party will be spending a significant amount of money. We have control of the finance ministry, and those funds will be going to help Haredim get to the workforce. I'm generating a group of volunteer attorneys to help Haredim who experience discrimination in the workforce when they're turned away from jobs because they're Haredi. And I'm very proud to know that through all the negative attacks and things that people want to say, I know what I'm actually doing, and I know what I stand for. Therefore, it's sad. It's sad to hear what people say about you, but it doesn't stop me from moving forward because I know the MS with which I've carried myself from the beginning of the process.
So talk for a second about the economic climate, because the economic situation, I guess the finance situation, the fiscal situation in Israel right now is not great. There's a huge budget deficit, and I think to a certain degree a lot of the popularity of Yesh Atid and your party had to do with more equality or more for the middle class and for the Israeli middle class and not to be forgotten. How will people within the party feel about allocating money towards Haredi society when a lot of the middle class, at risk of saying the tax-paying part of Israel, is also clamoring for that type of funding?
Well, I think that everybody understands that more Haredim in the workforce means more tax revenue being generated and means less people surviving simply off government handouts. That's number one. Number two, I can stand up and say and look people in the eye and tell everyone that every member of Yesh Atid sincerely cares about Haredim, sincerely cares for people who are in a situation where they cannot sustain their families with dignity, and sincerely wants to give them and empower them to be able to live their lives in a different manner and not suffer the poverty which has certainly been cast upon them by the leadership. So everyone's very comfortable with it, and it's part of creating an economy where you have people doing the workforce. We're very capitalist in nature in general, and the ultimate goal is to get more people off of welfare and more people into working, and that's the ultimate goal and perspective that we have in terms of how to get things back on track economically. The middle class, small businesses are the engine that makes the economy work, and that's the ultimate goal, is to get all that, to upstart that again.
Talk for a second about your trip itself. I think if I don't have the entire itinerary in front of me, or have I seen it, but just a sampling of where you've been going, it's very heavy on the centrist or modern Orthodox community. And are you, at the same time, meeting with Haredi leadership here in New York? Are you trying to go ahead and advocate for the same changes here in New York, here in the U.S.?
It's not my place to be advocating for any changes in New York, and that's the New York community's responsibility to deal with. Let me
I'm sorry. I apologize. I probably misspoke the question. What I'm saying is the Haredi community in the U.S. has a significant influence and has actually a significant bankroller, I guess, of the Haredi community in Eretz Yisrael. So the question is, are you trying to advocate for those types of issues in here in the U.S.? Because I guess what I've seen is that the trip is very heavy on meetings with the centrist or modern Orthodox community.
Yeah, I will say that I will meet anyone, anytime, any place if it could help the overall cause. I'm open to meeting with leadership of all the populations. Attempts have been made to have meetings with the more Haredi side of the United States and have not borne total fruit yet, but if anyone is listening and anyone wants to sit down and talk about the issues, I'm certainly open to it, and I'm certainly hopeful that before the end of the trip, some of those meetings will take place. My message, by the way, this is important for all the listeners to understand, for the modern Orthodox or even non-Orthodox communities in New York and New Jersey, has been on the one hand to explain the changes that we want to make in Israel, which includes some changes in the Haredi society, but every single place that we've gone to, I've talked about the strength of the Haredi community, the strength of Torah, the beauty of the chesed and the warmth that you can find within the Haredi community, and that my dream is that the Haredi community can be part of Israeli society so that everybody can see that and be influenced by that. So it is in no way at all what I'm sure people would suggest it would be, and that is a tour where people would assume that someone is walking around and saying negative things about Torah or the Haredi community, chas v'shalom, God forbid. It's balancing both. On the one hand, sharing what the ultimate goal is in terms of Israeli society, which touches also on the Haredi community, and also I feel a responsibility as an ambassador of sorts to make sure people understand the positive side, and they shouldn't take this as a negative declaration about that community.
Of course, it isn't every newly minted Knesset member who gets to speak at the 92nd Street Y, so obviously there's something specific. But as we wrap up, I want to just address political questions here, because this is a show about politics, and you, of course, are a politician now, even though you wanted to be an educator, so it's terrible what they did to you. But Yesh Atid, as a force in Israeli politics, kind of was the big surprise of the Israeli election. The assumption had been that Bibi was a genius in calling elections and that he was going to have a tremendous mandate, but it turns out that your party, through the leadership of Yair Lapid, had become quite a significant force. Tell us a little bit about that. What do you think the future of the Yesh Atid party is?
As someone who is very close to all the members of the Yesh Atid party, you did a wonderful job in creating a family out of this party. You know, in Israeli politics, within most parties, it's a lot of backstabbing and people trying to outdo the other. And here there really is a unity of purpose. I believe that Yesh Atid is a party that will be around for decades to come. I personally believe that Yair Lapid is a future prime minister of Israel. I think he understands politics. He surrounds himself with very good people. He has a vision for where he wants Israel to go, and it's one which I think Israeli society has embraced. And I think that Yesh Atid is going to contribute wonderful things to the future of the country.
What do you think about the fact that the election was so focused on domestic issues, on the financial issues, the economic issues, as opposed to some of the big existential issues for Israel, Iran, and the Matzav, as well as Syria and Lebanon?
I think that Israelis have come to realize that for decades we've been focusing, first of all, on right-wing versus left-wing, on the Palestinian conflict, and in the process, and focusing on that, we've allowed ourselves to decay as a people from within, more polarization between the communities, not really addressing some of the core issues that are just necessary for our country to survive. We've plummeted in terms of education, electoral reform is needed, and all these things have been pushed to the side. And Israelis have woken up and said it's time for us to really deal with those issues. In terms of Iran and Syria and the like, I think that people realize that every Israeli prime minister whether it's right-wing or left-wing or center, or when it comes down to it, we'll take care of Israel's security needs and we'll take whatever actions are necessary to protect the country. And people looked at themselves in the mirror and said it's time for a real change. We ran on a slogan of Banu L'Shanot. We've come to make change. It's time for new politics. We're not career politicians. We're activists from a variety of realms who have decided to enter politics to make a difference. And people are really seeing that happen. They are blown away by the fact that there's a party which stood to its values through the elections, after the elections, now that we're in government. And I want to make one more point. This party, which so many people identify falsely, or wrongly I should say, as being not positive for religion or for Torah, more Torah has been spoken from the Knesset podium from our party than I think in the history of the Knesset. And we're the first party that stood up and actually arranged a Beit Midrash on a weekly basis for the members of Knesset. That's the first time in the history of the Knesset that happened, and that was also a Yesh Atid initiative. I'm very proud to be part of that party, and I'm happy that such a large party, which is having such influence on the country, on the political realm, can hopefully also have a very positive influence on the spiritual realm.
Well, beautiful. One last question, Chaver Knesset Lipman. The Anglos in Israel have really not been a force in electoral politics, and there's always been, I don't know for what reason, but it's just been the case. And I don't mean just Americans, but Westerners, English, Australians, South Africans, and the like have never really been a force in electoral politics. Is that changing? I know that you were tasked specifically with that type of outreach, and what did you see on the campaign trail, and what do you see going forward?
What was interesting was during the campaign, especially during the debates that we had in English, all the other parties where people were ranked higher than I was on their lists, they used that card. Vote for my party, you'll have an Anglo candidate. I did not use that once. I never mentioned that. I really ran on the values, and in the end, it's ironic that I ended up as that member of Knesset. I do view myself very much as a representative of the English-speaking community, and our inbox in the Knesset office will bear that out, that I'm very honored, and I take it very seriously that people need assistance with various things, and we try to help wherever we can. The reason why there's never going to be, from my perspective, that there's no need for an Anglo political entity of any kind is because in politics we are really all across the board in terms of our beliefs, and I think that Anglos have very much taken care of their needs by reaching out and trying to take care of them on their own. There's no need for a political party. At the same time, I really do believe it's very important that we have representation in the Knesset. I think that it's a very important voice in the Knesset. Certainly my role on the Immigration, Absorption, and Diaspora Affairs Committee, I will be tackling issues for the English-speaking community which have been neglected. And there are needs. People and the government just doesn't realize that they have those needs. And I'm looking forward to trying to make things better for Olim who currently live in Israel, and hopefully to inspire far more aliyah from North America. For all those listening, if a few 100,000 North American Jews would move to Israel, we could make the country a much better place, and I certainly hope that people will consider doing so.
Well, Chaver Knesset Dov Lipman, thank you very much for joining us on Spin Class. How does one get in touch with you if they want to chat with you?
Two ways. One way is certainly to the email to Knesset. You can email dlipman@knesset.gov.il, and we will be in touch with you for sure. Yesh Atid is a party which very much believes in Facebook. We believe that it's important to have that direct correspondence with both supporters and those who are not in support of the party. And I do have a Facebook page, Dov Lipman, and you can like that page and send me messages. And like I said, I'm welcome to criticism. I think it's important to hear criticism, and certainly if people have questions, I'd be more than happy to be in touch. And that page is manned by me, and that's part of the policy. It's not manned by staff at all. Every night I sit down for a little while and try to correspond with people, and I welcome everyone to be in touch on that Facebook page as well.
Chaver Knesset Dov Lipman, thank you for joining us here on Spin Class, and hope